Welcome back to another episode of the Higher Life Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the future of recruitment. So, interesting topic, obviously, with the new trends in AI. We're seeing a lot of changes in both the candidate market side as well as the employer perspective and what they're looking to do in terms of revolutionizing their tech stack and how they approach recruitment. So, James, why don't you kick us off from a corporate perspective, maybe?
Yeah, it's very interesting because there is a lot of hype and trend with regards to generative AI, specifically around ChatGPT. When that thing came out, it just went bonkers with the amount of people trying it out, testing it out, and kind of showing the results online. It's given a lot of people ideas of what they can use the ChatGPT for and whether they can use it for their jobs or not. I think it first got really a lot of attention when it came to students in school, where they would use ChatGPT to write their essays or to help them study or to help them with their assignments. And now it's creeping into the corporate world. And so we're seeing it a little bit more in a few different areas. And me specifically, I'm seeing it in a couple of different areas as well. One of them is in technology, where you can actually use ChatGPT to help you do coding and development. And so there are tools out there now that can help you make your code better, can fix the errors in your code, and essentially make you a more efficient programmer / developer. And so that's one area that I've seen, generative AI and ChatGPT, creep into the workplace. And then another aspect is with just candidates in general. So a lot of candidates right now are using ChatGPT to write their resumes. Some hiring managers are using it to write their job descriptions, but also they're looking at it to help them prepare for interviews of what type of questions and answers that might come up during the interview process. And so these things are like really popping up. And as an organization, you have to be very mindful of these new trends because it is going to impact the way you essentially operate your business and the way you hire people as well. And so we're just at the beginning stages of like what that looks like.
Yeah. Great perspective. So, obviously we're trying to be forward-looking on this episode of the pod, and we're talking about the future of recruitment in tech. Where do you see the challenges with AI being introduced in the workplace?
So, one thing that I'll say is that it is going to increase productivity, and it is going to eventually replace jobs. And I think that's one of the most scariest things, especially for knowledge workers. And so I'll give you one recent example. Shopify just recently had a memo leaked from one of their employees or ex-employees who's a whistleblower. And in that memo, it mentions that the CEO, Toby Luther, is actually looking at AI to actually replace knowledge workers. And so they had a huge workforce of employees who were doing essentially sort of like customer support and customer service. And so whenever anybody had a problem or had a question or had any technical difficulties with the platform, they would call in, email, or use a chat messaging system in order to reach a human being. And now they're thinking about replacing 30% of all those people and then just using AI. And they've already developed the underlying software. So it's just a matter of time for that to happen. And that's just like one example of how things can escalate so quickly, so fast when it comes to the future of AI and how that might impact the workforce.
That's really interesting. I actually didn't know about that memo leak. Did they give a timeline at all on that, or do you know?
Probably in the next month or so.
What? When was this leaked?
This was leaked last week.
Okay, wow.
This is recent.
So we're thinking the next month or 2 months, we're going to see a massive drop-off in service employees at Shopify.
Well, you thought about it. You've seen even last month where consulting companies like IBM are starting to replace their workforce as well because they feel that with the use of AI, they're not going to need as much workers and developers and programmers because of the use of AI.
Oh, for sure. Like, I don't know, for the viewers listening or watching, I don't know if you guys have played with generative ChatGPT, but it is scary good at almost everything that you can think of. Though there's an asterisk here. I've heard with the latest updates, they've dumbed it down a little, because I think before there was no restrictions. Like if you wanted to create like some sort of security hack against like the banks, like you could with ChatGPT. It'd give you the code to do it, and then they're like, wait a second, this shouldn't allow people to do that. But it is scary good. I think one of the best use cases that I've seen is in service, actually, for ChatGPT. I don't know if that's just because it's like the easiest one to get rid of, or like, do you know, James, from like an internal corporate standpoint, like why service? Because it seems like most companies are starting there.
Yeah, I think for the most part, you think about service and you think about knowledge workers, and what they essentially do is they interact with customers and they extract information from a database about how to answer that question or how to help that customer do whatever they need to do. And so for those two components, you can use the chatbot to interact with the customer, so that replaces that component of it. And then you can use language learning models to be able to take from a specific database and to be able to answer the questions the same way a knowledge customer service worker would essentially do. So I think at this moment in time, it's the easiest to replace because the technology is already in place, and sometimes it's even better than what the humans could do. And so that's why we're seeing a little bit more about like, should we just replace these people and save lots of money? And I think a part of it as well is the economy. The interest rates going up and the economy is going down. Companies are looking to save money. And what better way to do that is to be able to use a tool to replace a certain percentage of your workforce that may or may not be doing the best job in the first place. Because you look at a lot of these, call centers and customer service, a lot of times, even when you get a human, they're not able to help you. Yeah, you gotta they tried their best. They have to redirect you to level 2 support or level 3 support or get the supervisor involved. And you're just like, I just wanted to change my phone plan. And so you get to a point where customers are frustrated and they just want things done in a very quick manner instead of going through so many loopholes. So if there's an AI chatbot that can do something in 5 seconds that a human customer service takes 30 minutes to do, not only is it better for the customers, but it saves the company a lot of money.
Yeah, I think you said that pretty well. Like it just aligns with a lot of companies' cost-cutting initiatives right now because it's top of mind, right? You know what's interesting is, so when I used to work at Salesforce, one of the solution sets that I tried to sell to SMBs was Einstein and its chatbot. And its value proposition was more or less the same as what companies are trying to roll out now internally. Having that chatbot replace service agents, reduce your overall total cost to serve. And a lot of small, medium business owners, at least a couple months back, they were convinced that people didn't want that.
I want that.
Like this, I'm kidding you not. Like I was speaking to leaders in tech at companies, and they were saying, "No, we think that the customer experience deserves a human touch." So do you I don't know. I know you go to a lot of these HR conferences and you hear people talk. Have you heard of any change in maybe that mentality across companies right now? I know you're working at a pretty progressive company where tech is, it's pretty respected, right? You're innovating, you want to be more efficient in what you do, but I feel like there's a lot of laggers in the industry. Do you feel like that's changing?
I feel like, to your point, a lot of traditional organizations do really embrace the personal touch and the human element of things. And, to their point, I think there's still need for that. But at different levels. And I think that's what people are starting to realize more, that yes, you do want that human element, that personal connection, but not for everything. And if it's something small and easy, I'd rather it be done fast than through personal and human touch. But if it's something that's complicated that requires a building of relationship and just more of that human touch, then yeah, for sure, we still need humans for that. So think about it in this perspective. It's do you need all humans to be level 1 service? Or should they just be level 2 or level 3 service? And maybe you use AI to be able to just replace level 1.
I mean, if level 1 was more efficient, I'd want the human touch at level 1.
Fair.
But like we all know, cost is a huge issue, and I think there's a lot more emergence of self-serve menus, right?
That's true.
In like the service field first, and then if you can't self-serve, then they escalate. And honestly, if level 1 is quick and efficient, I don't mind talking to someone. I don't.
If it was
But
quick
it's
and
not.
efficient.
That's the issue. You're hanging on the line for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And that's why chatbots seem to be a little bit more efficient.
I think, to your point, if people had both, they would choose that option. But if you had to choose fast versus human, people would rather choose fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
People choose fast all the time because time is money, and time is like the most valued commodity that humans have. So if they can save, hours of their day versus a 5-minute or even 30-second interaction with an AI, I'm choosing the 30 seconds.
Yeah, same here. I'd rather not wait on the line for 60 minutes to have that 1 minute interaction with an agent.
Yeah.
Where when I can just go on somebody's website for 30 seconds, chat with the AI, and solve my problems.
Yeah, and it's like, what to your point about the lagers of society and organizations. I've been recently dealing with an issue with the government and visas, and like on a personal level. And it's like, did you know if you want to get a travel visa just to visit the U.S. and you're not a citizen, it could take up to 2 years to get an interview with the U.S. Embassy.
What?
That's crazy.
And then you might get approved, and it costs money to do the application. It takes 2 years to get an appointment. Even if you want to just visit, let's say, Vegas for 2 days, it'll take minimum 2 years. The earliest appointment is August 2025, and I just found that the most ridiculous thing ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it's government though.
Well, that's government, but that's them not embracing technology. That's them not utilizing AI and efficiency and speed. They're always going to be the ones that would choose humans over AI.
Well, for that industry, I think the priority isn't. Well, cost cutting isn't
sure.
the biggest initiative, right? And speed to market is not a concern.
No.
But
definitely not in that industry.
But where I do see an emerging industry that I don't think we pay attention to it now, nor do I see it a lot, is fraud and security.
Sorry?
Fraud and security. With the use of AI comes... I know we always talk about how there's always going to be new AI jobs and all that, but I think where there's going to be huge emergence is fraud and security, both directly affecting the HR field because of fraudulent and identity thefts are going to be more and more, especially when it gets to the point where Terrence mentioned it earlier, where they could do videos, right? If you think about a video doing an interview that's AI generated and that's almost perfect, it'll get there eventually.
A lot sooner than you think.
Yeah. And then that leads to more fake candidates, especially for the remote roles, right?
So Stevie, let me ask you a question. When it comes to, so this is actually something that people are doing right now, is AI generated resumes. So they're using ChatGPT to create the resume from scratch based off of their experience. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think as an applicant, it saves a lot of time. I think it's an efficient way of doing it, but is it effective? I'd say for the most part, it probably is effective. That's why they're doing it. But on the flip side of that, from a HR person or recruiter perspective, you can kind of tell similarities when it's AI generated, and I don't think people realize that it takes away from the uniqueness of like their profile. Like it's hard to differentiate. I don't think an applicant sees that.
Fair. I think, but wouldn't you rather have a similar resume that is really like looking clean and has all the formatting that you wanted and like is actually giving you the content that you're looking for as an HR versus somebody that is just really bad at creating resumes and really bad at formatting and really bad at all that type of stuff, but could be a really great worker.
Depends on the role. Because like roles where you need it to be meticulous, high attention to detail or something, then yes. But on the flip, the arguing fact on that is we preach this DEI and inclusivity and bias, right?
Yeah.
In recruitment, it could get rid of that technically.
Yeah.
Right. If you have one general format that's unison among all applicants, and you're just literally looking at,
Yeah, just because
the
somebody
content.
has a flashy resume doesn't mean that they're going to be a good worker.
No. And just because they have a poor resume doesn't mean they're a bad worker, right? It's not
Agreed.
reflected on that.
Agreed.
So
So I embrace it. For me personally, I'm like, use
yeah.
all the AI stuff that you want for your resume, because at the end of the day, it's more so about your experiences and like how you do your job and how you perform, rather than how good you write your resume.
Well, James, here's a question for you then, because you have agency recruitment experience, as well as corporate. From a talent act perspective, then, when you have 200 generic resumes in front of you
Yeah.
with very similar content, it doesn't really give you much context on the candidate. Who are you shortlisting then for interview? Are you going to shortlist all 200?
You know what? That is probably the most difficult thing of like talent acquisition right now. You say 200, I'm dealing with thousands of resumes. And so sometimes,
per role, or?
I'll give you an example. For like a quality assurance engineer, like a software tester, we'll get 1,000 applicants for that one position. And to be able to look into how we shortlist those candidates, because all those resumes look the exact same, it's probably like one of the most challenging things. And to be honest, it's all, I would say, guesswork. It really is about the recruiter and the experience and the intuition. So when I look at a resume, I'm looking at like a whole myriad of things based off of my past experience and past resumes that I've viewed to make a determination of whether or not I'm going to be shortlisting a candidate. And for a brand new recruiter, it's going to be really challenging for them. Sometimes people don't even do it at all. They just, don't do the shortlist, or they pick a few keywords and then just shortlist from that perspective, or whatever the case may be, because the quantity is so high. And so it's probably like one of the most difficult pieces of the job, I would say, or like time consuming.
Personal like challenge for you, or do you feel like it spans across the board, like challenge for everybody in a talent acquisition role right now?
I would say challenge for everybody, and especially now that we're talking about like these ChatGPT resumes. It's like, do I have the time to really use a tool to identify whether somebody used AI to generate this resume, or like how am I differentiate, or how am I shortlisting these candidates because the quantity is so high? I think it would be interesting to see if there was a tool out there to kind of help recruiters make those determinations without being super biased.
So, you know how we're talking about how students use ChatGPT to write essays, and now there's solutions out there that can look at an essay and determine whether or not it was written by AI.
Yep.
Do you see something like that being introduced to HR?
In the future, yes. But again, to my point earlier, is like, I don't know if it matters too much about whether it was AI generated or not. What I think really matters is like, is this person going to be doing a good job? Is this person a high performer? And so if I can get a tool that can determine that, whether it's AI generated or not, I would like to use that tool more so than AI detection tool.
Yeah. I think that's the dream of
dream.
every employer.
That's the dream. Like, there's a 90% chance that this person is a high performer based off of their resume because of their experiences and what company they worked for. I'm like, awesome, amazing. Like, I'm going to click on this person and use this tool.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, that even having set all those challenges from a recruitment perspective, that you would still encourage candidates to still go ahead and use AI for their resumes. Because in my mind, if you're using AI to generate context around your career experience, it doesn't really say much. Like, I could be wrong. Maybe you prompt it really well and it can create a very detailed resume that talks about you in a very accurate way that can highlight to a recruiter, like, this is a star performer. But I don't think the majority of people are using it to that.
For me personally, it's more so I would advocate it because it doesn't give you an advantage, but it removes the disadvantage. So I'd rather see an AI resume than a shitty resume.
But don't you think that that disadvantage, I mean, still, it just reflects who you are as a candidate, and that from an employer perspective could be like, hey, this is where their growth opportunities are. This is where I can mold them, and this is the type of person I'm looking for. Someone that's maybe not that strong in this area because I want that person to grow into that.
I think it's to Steve's point. Depends on the job. I think if you are in communications or you're in certain fields that like, oh yeah, that matters of how you write your resume and how you communicate verbally and written and all those type of things. But if you're a programmer, like what does writing a good resume tell you about how well they code?
Their communication skills and how well they might work in an agile environment.
What if you don't need to be part of a team? What if you're just coding as an individual contributor and you don't have to interact with any humans at all?
That's very rare these days.
No, not entirely. There are sometimes there will be teams, but there are other times that you're just writing code to contribute to an application, or sometimes you're just maintaining an application, and you're the only one that's doing it.
How many managers, like from a dev's perspective, go, hey, I want to hire someone without any people skills?
Yeah, I mean, it happens.
It happens,
Terrence. We've been there. It happens.
It's a very niche technology. Oh, yeah. It happens.
That's the first thing you get rid of. It's like, I don't care if they interact. I don't care if they come in the office, right? Like, it's get the job done.
And so that's why, to Steve's point, a lot of times programmers work remotely. So if you're working remotely, you're interacting with less people.
You can work remote, but you're still joining video conference meetings.
Yes, but it's not the same as other non-tech positions that are required to go to the office at all times to interact with humans versus a developer that has to, work remotely and sometimes have video calls with their teams. I think there's a difference between the level of interactions that some positions need over others and the level of like communication skills. Obviously, if you want to be a manager, you want to be an executive, you're in a non-tech role, the level of written and verbal skills and communications is going to be a higher need than developers. Hey, I'm not saying that they never have to talk to somebody, but the amount that they have to talk to is probably less than the CEO or the director of communications.
That's fair. There's definitely going to be levels to it. I think that, but if you were to look at two resumes side by side and you'd want to make a decision on who to shortlist to that interview, it's going to be the guy that has a bit more context on paper, like about the communication skills. And I don't think it's fair when you have a developer that's worked on the communication skills, like writing that resume themselves, and then now they're competing against someone that has not worked on that skill but got the interview anyways because AI helped them. But it's kind of like cheating.
But that's the same thing that's a big topic right now of how people are using ChatGPT to become better programmers. So you have one developer that uses ChatGPT and they're 30 times more efficient than the guy that didn't use ChatGPT because, he doesn't want to use it because he wants to, just rely on his own skills. And that's 30 times less efficient. Which one am I going to choose? The resourceful guy that uses AI to make his work better and faster, or the guy that doesn't want to use it because he developed his development skills for a long time?
Air quotes. Have you spoken to a lot of candidates like that recently?
You know what?
I'm just saying as a manager, I would choose the developer that uses AI.
Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, it's going to become a skill on the resume.
Prompt engineers are going to be a role in the future.
Well, that's my point.
Like ChatGPT's skills is going to be a measure of skills.
Who are you going to want? You're going to want the person that utilizes the future of technology and actually makes themselves more efficient and better.
You're not wrong on that point. I will admit, that shows that they're progressive and right.
So here's another follow-up question to that then. Do you feel like the talent act world is going to start introducing some sort of measure, like in an interview style, where they can assess that, how good are you with this AI platform, or how current are you with AI in general, and where does that stop? Is it just developers? Do we implement that in service? Do we implement that in sales?
I'll let Steve answer this one.
I think it's going to be a new component. I 100% think it's going to be a new component in like the next, like think about it right now. It's probably already in the service space. right?
For sure, it's in the
Right,
space.
100% at that. It's almost interviews. It's like, okay, you're interviewing for a director of customer success. Talk to me about technologies you guys use. And the first thing they're probably going to say, like these days, it's table stakes to say every company has implemented some sort of chatbot. So I think it's just a matter of time for it to creep to engineering and the other departments. But it's not common. Like, it's not common yet.
But you know what? I think you're right. I think having that technology on your resume, it sparks conversations during interviews. It's probably something hiring managers are looking forward to. Because, for example, Salesforce CRM, gold standard in the industry, right? SaaS solution, number one. When people see that you've used that on a resume, you stand out.
You do.
That draws candidates to companies too when they know you're working with the most innovative and new tech, because they know it adds value to their careers. That's going to make its way into conversations during interviews. Like, oh, you've used this. To what degree? How? What have you done?
And I think it's like, if you want to look at history and how it's worked in the talent acquisition and the corporate world, like, think about what happened before even the internet and before even computers. You know, once the computers and internet started to become more popular, more trending, and people are using it more, and you see two resumes, one, someone that hasn't touched a computer in their entire life versus someone that just, got the skills in, word processing and like knows how to use the internet, knows how to use a computer, which one's going to be more useful? The person that is embracing the new technology and becoming skilled at it, or the one person that's traditional, that's like, oh, like, I don't need to learn any of this. It's the same thing how like BlackBerry just like lost its race against the iPhone. They failed to innovate, and they failed to use the latest in technology, and then they got put out to dust.
I forget who I was talking to about this recently. It was the Blockbuster Netflix analogy. Oh, we're number one. We don't need to change.
Oh yeah, it's streaming, right?
Was this me and you? I think
no. Maybe, I don't know.
That's such a common thing, though.
But that's
everyone
a common
knows
thing,
about
right?
the Blockbuster.
But that's the same thing. Like, not embracing new technology could literally destroy your business.
So you're
that's
saying,
the same thing.
so this is what I'm
It's the
getting.
same
If
thing.
you're saying that people aren't embracing it, that they're going to destroy the business, that means a lot of directors of software and all that jazz, they're doing a service to the organization.
100%.
The reason being is, you know how we've been talking about, like, we want someone that's, I guess, that's embracing new technologies and stuff, but to this day, Tessa's assessments from a tech level to developers are still very logic based, regardless of how good you are in terms of research. Like, how it, like, we all know in our day jobs or whatever, there's tools that you have access to outside of a textbook to help you solve the problem or tackle issues. But that mindset isn't quite there for a lot of roles still these days.
I would disagree with that. I think that what they're testing for there, like you said, it's logic, right? When you're prompting ChatGPT, for example, it's still a series of if-then logic statements that you would have to go through to get to your solution. Like, ChatGPT is not like a silver bullet. It can be wrong. Like, I've used it extensively just on a day-to-day. And sometimes the solution it gives me, it's not right off the bat. Like, you have to continuously iterate. And I think if you're applying a logic test in an interview, like maybe the format changes through time. Maybe it becomes a little bit more AI specific, but the concept of testing somebody's ability to think their way through and logic the solution out, like, I don't think that changes. That will still be a part of development in general. Like,
it will until the AI gets that good, right? Where you can trust it, right now with maybe like 70% efficient, effective.
That's a whole nother rabbit hole on its own, because there's I know it's being worked on. It's self-prompting AI.
Oh yeah. I can see that. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. That's
so it brings you the logic. It gives you the ideas. It feeds you like prompters.
It's like a continuous loop. It's
my God.
It's like, what did I do wrong here? Oh, that's what I did wrong. Okay, here's the full solution.
That's why it's better to embrace it rather than to deny it. If you have one software company that's embracing it and iterating and using the newest versions of ChatGPT and even customizing it to make it better versus someone that refuses to use it, I'm sorry, if they're in the same industry, I feel bad for the second one.
Good point. How are we doing on time?
We're doing okay.
Are we at the half hour mark? Let's do a quick time check.
We just hit the half hour mark.
We cut some of this out, but
Yeah. Well, I think, in the spirit of keeping this short, relatively speaking, we'll wrap it here. But let's summarize some of the things that we've discussed because we've unpackaged a lot. We've discussed a lot here, right? So I think one of the biggest takeaways from an employer standpoint is that in the HR, talent acquisition, recruitment field, how employers are going to start viewing resumes, it's definitely going to change. There will be an introduction. I can't speak. I need coffee. Introduction of some sort of solution. We don't know what yet that will help recruiters determine who the best candidate is to shortlist for an interview, right? Like we know that's coming because from a candidate perspective, we're seeing an uptick in the amount of people that are using AI to generate resumes, which can be a good or bad thing. But ultimately what happens is you have this massive list of generic resumes. So you don't stand out. That's the challenge from a candidate perspective. So employers are going to look for ways to combat this. We know that's coming. I think the second thing that we talked about is companies needing to embrace AI to survive.
Yep.
There were a lot of laggers 6 months ago, right? But AI has changed so much in such a short amount of time that if within the next 6 months to a year, you're not seriously looking at AI for your business, it's going to be, I don't know if the Netflix blockbuster effect is going to, that's a fair analogy. Like it's maybe not to that level, but
or maybe
it's coming.
Maybe to that level.
Who knows? We don't know, but that's one thing businesses should look at. And then I think number 3 in my mind is just how people get hired in general, like during the interview process, what gets tested, the skills that are required to pass those assessments that'll land you a job. That's going to be different for the type of role that you're interviewing for, but some sort of AI component will eventually be introduced. We don't know what that looks like yet, but we do know it's top of mind for talent acquisition teams and HR in general.
Yep.
Did I miss anything there?
No, that pretty much sums it up.
I mean, we talked a lot about a bad tech, but I feel like there's also some good tech out there too. So maybe we'll cover that next time. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys. Hope you found some valuable notes in there, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you later.
See ya.